The leaders of the community of Latin America and the Caribbean states analyzed on Tuesday the assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito in virtual meeting. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro denounced that the United States has not complied with the agreements signed on the lifting of the illegal coercive measures. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces committed 5 massacres in Gaza, leaving 46 people dead and 110 others wounded in the last 24 hours. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The leaders of the community of Latin American Caribbean states analyzed on Tuesday the assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. The extraordinary virtual summit was convened by the president pro tempore of the regional body, Xiomara Castro, to discuss the siege of the Mexican embassy. During the event, the president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, maintained before his CELAC counterparts his denunciation against Ecuador for the violations of international law for the violent seizure of the diplomatic headquarters in Quito. Meanwhile, the government of Venezuela demanded political asylum for former Vice President Jorge Glass.
The issue on Quito, it provides a disgusting feeling for all of us, but so we have to take into account this incident. The world we are living in this moment, it doesn't seem a democratic world. It seems that to be a world that takes more huge steps to barbarism. Even barbarism at the moment, barbarism has to do with denial of democracy, with an array of global issues regarding the political power worldwide.
On the other hand, Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, reiterated that the actions of the Ecuadorian government are illegal.
All governments in the world are aware there that the actions of Ecuador has been illegal, subversive of the international law and sovereignty.
Y han violentado la ley en relación
to
inviolabilidad de los espacios diplomáticos,
the liability of diplomatic spaces.
Es necesario tomar acciones correctivas.
And it is necessary to take corrective actions
sea el regreso
to return former Vice President Glass to the Mexican embassy. So St. Vincent and Grenadines supports all peaceful measures taken by Mexico.
The Cuban president urged the restitution of the former Vice President of Ecuador, Jorge Glass, to the condition he had in the Mexican embassy, according to international law.
What happened not only has a negative impact on the bilateral relations between Mexico and Ecuador, it affects all the countries of this region and the international community as a whole. The violation of international law and the violation of the legitimate rights of a state is an offense to all. We urge to restore former Vice President Jorge Glass to his pre-asylum status in the Mexican embassy and to redirect his case in accordance with international law.
Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, for his part, pointed out that the measure of Daniel Noboa's government is considered a violation of the Vienna Convention.
This violates the Convention of Vienna of 1961, and so this cannot be allowed. We must defend the right of the asylum. 60 years ago, we have signed the Convention of Caracas about asylum, and so the International Court of Justice has been in charge of this issue, and it has been very crystal clear about it. Our challenge is to find ways to build again the international confidence, and we must look beyond, and we must find solutions. We must value our own means, our own resources. That is very needed for CELAC to continue to consolidate our regional unity.
In this context, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, assured that his administration has ordered the closure of its embassy in Quito.
I announce in front of all of you, in front of so I have ordered to close our embassy in Ecuador, to our consulate in Guayaquil, and so we ask the Venezuelan diplomatic corps to return to our country. So we are getting ready for our diplomatic corps in Ecuador to return till the constitutional order be restored in Ecuador.
The Venezuelan leader offered his government's full support to the Mexican president in his lawsuit against Ecuador before the International Court of Justice.
In all modesty, Venezuela joins fully to support Mexico in your demand to the International Court of Justice, questioned, which has been questioned. This is a very crystal clear incident. So the International Court has the opportunity to gain again the nation's trust. Mexico can count on Venezuela to in this battle, in the function of the future. Thank you very much, Presidents.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, denounced that the United States has not complied with the agreements signed on the lifting of the illegal coercive measures imposed against the country. During his program with Maduro Más, the Venezuelan head of state stressed that the White House has not respected the signed documents, despite the 9 private meetings held between the authorities of both countries, 6 of which have taken place in Qatar and 3 in Milan. At the same time, he denounced that the United States requested that the talks be of a reserved and private nature, but have leaked information to different medias. Finally, Maduro emphasized that by now the U.S. government should have lifted all sanctions against Venezuela according to the agreements reached. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On Tuesday, Cuba and the United States will hold an important meeting framed to establish regular, safe and orderly migration agreements for the Cuban nation. During a press conference, Johanna Tablada, Deputy Director of the United States area of the Cuban Foreign Ministry, informed that this will be the 4th meeting since the mechanism was reinitiated in 2022. At the meeting, the Cuban side will present priorities to curb the wave of immigrants, which is growing due to the tightening of the blockade and the policy of maximum pressure measure from the White House initiated during Donald Trump's administration. The meeting will be headed by Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs Carlos Fernández de Cosío, and on the U.S. side, the Assistant Secretary of the Department of State, Eric Jacobstein.
This is the fourth time that delegations from Cuba and the United States have met in migration rounds since the mechanism was resumed in 2022. On the Cuban side, the Cuban delegation, which includes several agencies and agencies of the government of Cuba in addition to the Mintrex, will be led by Deputy Minister Carlos Fernández de Cosío, and on the U.S. side, it will be chaired or headed by Deputy Assistant Secretary Eric Jacobstein.
On the other hand, the Cuban official referred to the decision of the White House to keep Cuba on the list of countries sponsoring terrorism and pointed out the consequences that this brings for the population of the country.
The mechanism by which a country is removed from the terrorist list is that in the last 6 months there has not been a terrorist act by that country against the United States. Tell me, what terrorist act has occurred by Cuba against the United States? And they know that this list has no merit, and it should not be like that because it is a very small list and it has a brutal impact on the living conditions of the Cuban people, on the purchase of food, even in people's transactions, on the purchase of tickets.
In Palestine on Tuesday, the Palestinian Ministry of Health highlighted that the Israeli occupier in the last 24 hours committed 5 massacres in Gaza, leaving 46 people dead and 110 others wounded. In this sense, the report added that the Israeli troops attacked a mosque in the city of Jabalia, which left several people dead, while several vehicles of the occupation army also entered the city of Beit Hanun, where they surrounded a school housing, displaced persons in the city, and opened fire on them. Since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza, on October 7th, Israel has killed 33,797 people, most of them children and women. In Palestine, Israeli airstrikes and tanks continue to hammer all areas of Gaza, offering Palestinians no escape from violence. More details from our correspondent, Nur Harasan. Let's see.
Israel continues pounding the Gaza Strip from its north to its south with hundreds of airstrikes and shells. In some of the highlights, the Israeli warplanes targeted a police car in northern Gaza, killing 9 people of the policemen and also pedestrians, people who were in the area. Those policemen are considered civilians, and they were there to protect the humanitarian aid that is being allowed to the Gaza Strip and also to help distributed on the people in northern Gaza. Also in another attacks, the Israeli tanks invaded northern areas in the Al-Nusayrat refugee camp. For the 4th day in a row, there is clashes on the ground between the Palestinian militants and the Israeli forces in northern the Al-Nusayrat camp, even though Al-Nusayrat camp is considered a green zone, a green area which is located in middle Gaza. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 46 Palestinians were killed in Gaza during the past 24 hours, and this brought up the death toll here in the coastal enclave up to 33,872 Palestinians, with more than 9,000 people reported missing. Some of them were either arrested or still their bodies under the rubble did not get evacuated. Right now we are in front of the Al-Kuwaiti hospital. Today doctors from inside the Al-Kuwaiti hospital send a message to the international community calling upon the doctors to intervene and help ease the situation inside the hospitals. Nur Harazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, the Copenhagen Stock Exchange building in the capital of Denmark was engulfed in a fire which affected the roof and has already caused the collapse of its iconic spire, with no reports of casualties from the moment. In this regard, the head of Capital's Emergency Department, Jacob Bedsten Andersen, confirmed a massive deployment of troops in the area, while the Danish Emergency Services said that the main work will be rescue and extinguishing. The building, known in Danish as Borsen and whose construction was completed in 1640, is located near the Christiansborg Palace, where the parliament is located, and is one of the country's main tourist attractions. In Indonesia, the bodies of 20 people killed in landslides were recovered on the island of Sulawesi. Mud loosened by torrential rains tumbled down from the hills onto four houses Saturday in the village of South Makale in South Sulawesi province's Tanah Toraja district, stated Gunadi Mundu, local police chief. The steep, muddy terrain prevented access by heavy machinery, forcing rescuers to work with hand tools. At least 20 search and rescue workers participated in the operation, in addition to dozens of residents. Maksar Search and Rescue Chief Maxanis Bekabel stated rescuers found the last two bodies in South Makale village on Monday afternoon and officially ended the search process. Australian police on Tuesday announced the arrest of a 15-year-old boy for a knife attack on a bishop and his followers at a Nazarene Orthodox church in Sydney. The attack took place during a church service at Christ the Good Shepherd Church, in which Bishop Mary Emmanuel and a priest were injured. In this sense, New South Wales Police Commissioner Karen Webb said the suspect's comments pointed to a religious motive for the attack. In this way, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, the nation's main domestic spy agency, and the Australian Federal Police joined state police in a counter-terrorism task force to investigate whether anyone else was involved.
It is a disturbing incident. There is no place for violence in our community. There is no place for violent extremism. We are a peace-loving nation. This is a time to unite, not divide as a community and as a country.
At the same time, our job is also to look at individuals connected with the attacker to assure ourselves that there is no one else in the community with similar intent. At this stage, we have no indications of that, but it is prudent that we do this to determine there is no threats or immediate threats to security. At this time, we're not seeing that.
Almost 100 days before the opening of the Paris Games, the relay of the Olympic flame began on Tuesday after its lighting at the Greek archaeological site of Olympia during a ceremony marked by messages of hope in a tense international context. The archaeological site of Olympia in Greece was the scene of the traditional ceremony, marked by a cloudy day that prevented the ignition from taking place with the sun's rays, as history would have it. Instead, it took place with a reserve flame preserved from Monday's dress rehearsal. In Greece, 600 relays will pass the flame, which will travel 5,000 kilometers through 7 islands, 10 archaeological sites, and the Acropolis of Athens, where it will spend a night next to the Pantheon. After an 11-day journey through Greece, the flame will head for France with the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in Paris on July 26th.
They're the Olympic Games, you know, they're the only event which really bring the entire world together at one place and competing peacefully with each other. And this is the great symbol and the great message the Games are sending. And we hope that many people around the world, you know, are inspired by seeing this, what the athletes are doing, that you can compete fiercely against each other, but you at the same time you're living peacefully together in the Olympic Village, sharing your meals and your emotions.
And we move on to football, because on Tuesday, Paris Saint-Germain will face Football Club Barcelona in the second leg of the European Champions League quarter-finals. Today's game is Barcelona's great opportunity to return to the semi-finals after 5 years of disappointment, and for the first time since the departure of Lionel Messi. PSG, on the other hand, must bounce back after a frustrating performance in France, in which Kylian Mbappé went unnoticed. All eyes will now be on him, as much of his club's hopes are resting on his talent. Borussia Dortmund will face Atletico de Madrid at the Signal Iduna Park Stadium in the other Champions League match day. For their part, Atletico are hoping to reach the semi-finals for the fourth time under Diego Simón, having done so in 2013 and 2014, 2015 and 2016 and 2017. Worth noting that the only coach to have reached the semi-finals is more times with the same team is Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. Atletico de Madrid will need to play a near-perfect game, not letting any cracks appear in their defense and taking their chances in attack, relying on Griezmann. They will also have a big problem due to the difficulties of visiting Borussia Dortmund with their great fans. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.